This is the Perdition difficulty clear for Scion of Frosttide Aquina, and we are on the level 1 blessings, which is just the base ones. I actually don't even think I had this active when I was doing the run. But this is 10% effectiveness, which we don't use for this setup. And there is Virgo, 30% speed for Earth Heroes is very, very useful here. The boss is very fast. And its effectiveness of whatever can't exceed 100% just means that you can't get 15%ed, but we are not using debuffs in this run, so it doesn't matter for us. The units I'm using, I've got Charles, Roana, Young Senya, and Violet. I'm linking Envy's video in the description, which had Command Model Leica here in place of Young Senya. I put Command Model Leica in my Grace of Growth, and she did not work for me, so I have to take her back now. I'll wait to 3 days. That kind of sucks, but Young Senya is not that accessible, though I think the difficulty on clearing this might only be for people who have played long enough to have Young Senya. Hard to say with Path of Air, though, kind of broken. Anyways, besides Violet, you could also use something like Adult Senya or Irvelyn. One thing for Violet and Irvelyn is if you have no plans to clear the first version of this boss, then the level 2 on Virgo turns Irvelyn and kind of Violet, because Violet's counter isn't guaranteed since he only dodges sometimes. It turns them into a second Charles, basically. Increases their attack too. Also, this decreased skill cooldown of S3 is really relevant for Irvelyn, because it makes his S3, or makes his counter buff stay up a lot more often. And then Roana here, I simply use Ray here, so you could use whatever you think works well for you. If you take a look at everyone's stats now, though, let's start off with Young Senya. So for Young Senya, I have her on counter HP. The counter isn't mandatory, it's just because Violet's counter is RNG, I just wanted more counter sources. And then, it just makes it so that even if Violet doesn't counter, sometimes you'll have an extra counter in. Young Senya's S2, this rock, also counts for reducing the celestial energy. So this also helps a bit, even when Violet doesn't dodge. Sometimes in certain parts of the fight, you're going to be able to remove celestial energy anyways. Besides that, just a little bit of speed is nice, I think, honestly, because you don't need too much HP to survive. You want a good amount of HP to survive, yes, but the speed, her turns are impactful. Her S1 is useful. It's just a dual attack from random ally. If it pulls Charles or Violet, that's huge. And her S3 cleanse can be nice every once in a while, just to cleanse the stigma if you want. Typically, with the unbuffable, you're going to have stigma on anyways, so you might not be able to cleanse the unbuffable, but could still be useful if you don't have stigma on you. For artifact, I'm using Bird's Eye View. This is just because I want to be able to Soulburn Charles turn 1. Instead of Bird's Eye View, you could also use something like, if I can find it down here, Spotted Mouse Hair Tie. If you're using Spotted Mouse Hair Tie, I recommend putting Spotted Mouse Hair Tie on Roana instead, depending on your setup, though I'll mention that a bit later when I get to Roana. Only difference between Spotted Mouse Hair Tie and Bird's Eye View for Senya is that Bird's Eye View requires you to actually move. But like I said, I think Senya taking turns is actually kind of nice. If you take a look at Roana next, her gear is pretty much the same. I have her team imprint on because it's better for you to be on team imprint. For my run though, I had her on personal just to reduce Violet and Charles' HP a bit. So you definitely want to be on team for your run if you have Roana imprinted, because her turns don't matter. You can just make her base speed, give her some HP and defense. Like if you find that like she's surviving and you want her to just, I don't know, generate a little bit more souls, then you can have her a bit faster if you want. Doesn't really matter that much. Counter for the same reason as Senya, we are just adding more counters into the runs so we can clear celestial energy a bit more consistently because of Violet's RNG dodge. And for her artifact, I am using Idol's Chair. Idol's Chair is just because when you are below 10% CR, you get hit with a strip into unbuffable, and it really sucks when that happens to Charles. So I have this to try and mitigate that, plus the cycling is just nice to have, especially with Young Senya having a consistent cleanse on her S3. For enhancements, you definitely want this maxed. And then her S3 probably doesn't really matter that much, though it is nice to have. But definitely max her S2. Next up is Violet. So for Violet, I do have him SSS, but Its stats is you can technically go as low as 70% crit chance. However, the way I use Violet in this setup means that it makes him not have perception up all the time, which means that I probably should have been 85, but I don't feel like redoing the run. I did miss crit a bunch of times in the run, but it is what it is. A little bit of bulk is nice, so he doesn't just randomly die when he likes to not dodge things. And then good amounts of damage as well. Lifesteal pen set, just lifesteal so he heals up a bit when he counters. And then for his artifact, I'm using Violet Talisman just because it is the largest evasion chance. If you don't have this, of course, you can just use Shepherd of the Hollow. I'm kind of not a huge fan of Moonlight Dreamblade, just with the way I want things to be in this setup. So you can just use Shepherd of the Hollow. And then lastly, we've got Charles. So for Charles, same thing, 85% crit chance because the boss is ice and you have elemental advantage. I think a little bit of speed is nice. Not super mandatory, but you probably do want to be able to deal some damage. You can try running him slower speed. I haven't even tried it to see how it goes. It's kind of just give him a bunch of damage. A bit of HP is nice so he doesn't die instantly. For his EE, you can use the S3 cleanse one. I found that I never actually needed it, so I just used the S2 damage dealt one instead. And then for his artifact, we're using Victoria's Flag. Good amount of damage dealt increase plus damage reduction. Very, very nice destruction pen sets for as much damage as we can. That is it for the stats and everything you want to see in the boss stuff. See here, immunities and whatever. But we can now take a look at the fight. I'm just going to have this at 2x speed because the fight takes way too long. I start off by using Senya S3 for the souls from Bird's Eye View. Now I can soul burn Charles S3, which gives me permanent uptime on the counter buff. Violet S2 into S1 removes his attack buff, which is important because it means that now Charles is the one who benefits from the Idol's Sheer CR push. And we can see the Senya S2 here counts for removing the Celestial Energy. Any attack that hits the boss on its turn will work for this. So, like I mentioned, we've got Charles, S1, S2. On the counter, we've got Roana, Senya counter set. Violet has his chance to dodge and counter as well. Plus, whenever it's available, Senya S2. These are a lot of our sources for removing the Celestial Energy. You're just gonna keep on soul burning Charles S3. It's the only soul burn we'll use. Later on in phase 3, you can invest some soul burns into Senya S1 for the CR push if you want. Just make sure you have enough souls for Charles. There we got the Violet counter. Remove the Celestial Energy again. You also get the speed down debuff on her. When she doesn't have the speed down debuff, she is very, very fast. We're waiting for 70%. Once the boss drops below 70%, we'll enter phase 2. Now we're in phase 2. She summoned her little version. This little version, whenever the boss uses S1, the small version will also use S1, which is going to injure you a bit and push you back. And when the boss uses S3, the little one will also use its S3, which is going to apply 3-turn Stigma on you. Stigma cuts your CR pushes in half, so it's pretty significant. And it also does a good bit of damage. This is why it gets a lot harder once you get into phase 2 and especially phase 3, just because the Stigma is restricting you so much. It's just, you can't push nearly as much, and now you actually have to be wary of, not that you can really do anything to stop it, but if any of your units are at or below 10% CR when Aquina finishes her turn, they will be stripped and hit with Unbuffable, which is pretty much going to kill you if you are using Charles especially, and he's the one who gets hit because you won't be able to get counter buff for a bit. That is just something to keep in mind. Only nice thing about the small version being here is we proc Senya S2 a lot more frequently. And now we're looking at 40%. That is when the boss enters phase 3. Now Violet's going to cycle off the attack buff. Just like that, we're in phase 3. So now in phase 3, this boss has a horrendous amount of speed. Like, we got to remove the thing, but even with the speed down debuff on her, just look at how much she manages to move by the time Charles takes a turn. That is a lot. She pretty much almost took her turn. So this is just a DPS race at this point. You have to kill the boss before it kills you. And you can see that damage starting to ramp up, especially with being 50% injured. I'm going to use Senya S3 here just to cleanse the stigma off of Charles. Senya S2 coming in clutch again. We soul burn Charles S3. Good thing is we have a lot of souls from the previous phases. When you enter phase 3, the boss removes 20 souls from you, but also every time it attacks, it'll also remove more souls from you. So very nice that we have so many souls to just hold on to. Violet just refuses to dodge, so he dies. But honestly, a genius move, because this means that now when Senya uses her S1, there is a 50% chance to pull Charles instead of 33, so not the worst thing in the world, honestly. One more nice thing you gain from Violet being dead is there's no way anybody but Charles will be the highest attack, so Idle Shear will only go to him. Not that this is mandatory, I've cleared this twice without Violet dying, and it's been fine. It's just, if Charles gets the CR push from Idle Shear, you don't really have to worry about him ever being in that 10% range to get his buffs removed, and then hit with Unbuffable. Even if Senya can cleanse it, you do still have to wait for his S3 to come back, which can be annoying, especially when you're in this DPS race phase. You can see how fast that boss is when it doesn't have the speed down too. And here at this point, we are pretty much good to go. We're just going to soul burn S3 here, and the boss is going to kill itself the next time it hits us. Or I guess not quite, it has like 1 HP left, but it's pretty much going to die soon. And there we go, that's the fight. Here's the rewards I got for my initial clear, because the one I just showed was my third clear. 250 currency, of course. This is a bit hard to tell because it's a bad screenshot, but this is a sword. 2 galaxy bookmarks and 3 greater charms. This means that one of the greater charms and one of the epic charms got swapped out for galaxy bookmarks, which is acceptable. And then the sword was okay. I rolled it, didn't roll well, but still, like, this sword alone is better than anything I've seen from Nightmare Cycle in a while. In terms of this run, it's definitely, like, pretty premium. Like, we're not using Charles. No one uses Violet anymore. Roana is okay, I guess. I don't really use her at all, but I can see where she would be used. And Young Senya is super good, just hard to get. Of course, there are replacements for these slots, though they're not fantastic either. Nobody uses Senya anymore. Ervelyn is complete dog water. Ervelyn was almost good, and then they got his they got his buffs reverted. And then Young Senya is just hard to get, but then Command Laika, the replacement, nobody uses that unit. So, a bit rough, but if you have these units and the gear for it, you can give us a shot, see how it goes. I found this to have way more consistency than the Leica version personally. I think I did like 10 attempts with the Leica comp and it wasn't working. Tried this one, cleared it first try, and I did a few more runs, and I'm cleared it about like a 50% rate. So, pretty big fan of this comp. It's just hard to get. Anyways, that's it for the ice team. Don't even know if the earth boss is clearable, but we'll see.